Will other conferences tell the Big Ten and the SEC to pound sand? Will they call their bluff at the college football playoff meetings tomorrow in Dallas? I wouldn't do that if I were them. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button down below while you're watching, if you don't mind. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if the first $5 bet wins. All right, our Big Ten and SEC conferences, are they bluffing with all their demands for the new expanded college football playoffs? And what will the other conferences say tomorrow? Nebraska canceling again. I don't know what that's all about. Actually, I do. I'll tell you. And Michigan signed Dusty May to an extension. He's been there, 10 months? Indiana putting pressure on him for that. Plus, we're going to Vegas at our top 10. All that coming up on this episode. But all the FBS conference commissioners and Notre Dame's AD are going to be meeting in Dallas tomorrow, Tuesday, to determine the path forward for the college football playoffs. Or we should say that the Big Ten commissioner, Tony Petitti, and the SEC commissioner, Greg Sankey, will dictate to the rest of the college football world how college football will proceed forward with the playoffs beginning in 2026. Who's called the shots here, right? It's Big Ten and the SEC. And they're also going to give themselves some advantages, some built-in advantages to these playoffs starting in 2026. And we'll see if the other conferences hold the line or if they cave in or if they call the Big Ten and the SEC's bluff that they'll just leave altogether and do their own thing. The playoffs will expand. That'll come out of this meeting, that's for sure. We'll go from 12 to 14 teams and maybe 16. More on that in a minute, because I think that's where we're going right away. I think we're just going to skip right over the whole thing and go to 16. Now, the Big Ten and the SEC will demand that they will each automatically get 4 teams in the field for the playoffs starting in 2026. They'll make some changes to the seeding process as well, and they'll look at the whole process of the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings, and they'll tie those rankings into the seedings moving forward. No more 12th ranked teams getting buys and getting a week off and getting a top 4 seeding. That will not happen anymore. So that probably hurt the ACC and the Big 12 and Group of 5 schools. So why do the Big Ten and the SEC have all this leverage here? It's because they have the best teams, the biggest brands, the best TV ratings, and the most money at stake out of anybody. They're calling the shots. And in the end, they can and have threatened to take their ball and go home. If pushed, they claim they'll just leave everybody else and create their own deal, their own NFL-style AFC versus NFC tournament. They'll just be fine. Not even worried about all the other conferences. They'll just do their own thing. They'll expand a little bit, become more powerful, and just do their own thing. I think they will. Or will they? The Clemson Insider. I was reading some of that this weekend. Wrote an interesting piece, so I'll share it with you. The Clemson Insider. Obviously, they cover the Clemson Tigers. They wrote this weekend that the other conferences, the ACC and Big 12 and Group of 5 and Notre Dame, they should all call the Big Ten and SEC's bluff in these meetings. Oh, yeah? You're really going to go leave without us? What kind of important? You're not going to leave us. Call their bluff. All right, so I thought about this a lot. When the Big Ten and the SEC start pushing their demands tomorrow, starting with, hey, we're getting 4 teams in, whether we're good or not, the other conferences should just say no, according to the Clemson Insider. They should say, look, man, you're not getting 4 automatic bids. Look at the SEC this year. They weren't that good. They didn't deserve 4. Maybe the Big Ten did this year, and it's cyclical. One year the Big Ten will be up. The next year the SEC could be up. Maybe both of them be down, and maybe the ACC 5 years from now will be so dominating that they should be the ones getting all the teams in the playoffs, or the Big 12. So, and then they should say, according to this piece, if you choose to leave us behind, fine. We dare you. We're going to call your bluff because we don't think you're going to leave the rest of us behind. You actually need us, the ACC, the Big 12, as much as we need you. That's what they should say, according to this article. It's an interesting thought process. I don't think it'll happen. I'll tell you why in a minute. But even ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips recently told Yahoo Sports that he hasn't even decided really ultimately what format the playoffs should look like. He's going to get together with all of his colleagues and kind of figure this out. But he says that the whole process should be fair for everybody and that everyone should have access to the championship. And I'm not sure what Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark is thinking on this going into this meeting this week, or Notre Dame's for that matter. But overall, I found that the call the Big Ten and SEC's bluff an interesting take by the Clemson insider, but it was a bit short-sighted. I thought it was short-sighted. I'll share that with you. So if the Big Ten and the SEC were to pull away on their own and do their own thing and do their own super conference and do their own playoffs and championship and forget about everybody else, I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of ACC and some Big 10 or Big 12 schools would follow them. They would leave their conferences. They would realign. We'd have conference expansion in the Big 10 and the SEC, just like I predicted we're getting there anyway. It's just going to happen sooner. It would be the death of the ACC and the Big 12. Florida State and Clemson are dying to leave for the Big 10 or the ACC right now. They're currently both embroiled in lawsuits to get out of the ACC. They don't want to hang around. And once that happens, it's a domino effect. Everybody starts to crumble. North Carolina State, Miami, Virginia, they'd all seek shelter in the Big 10 or the SEC. And, once that happened, the writing would be on the wall for the Big 12. And they've already lost their two marquee programs in Texas and Oklahoma. Everybody wants to pretend it's no big deal. We're moving forward. It was a big deal, and they'll lose more. So this article also suggested that non-Big Ten and non-SEC conferences, they should go their own way. And that also means get their own TV deals. Well, where? The Big Ten is everywhere. The SEC's got their deal. Where are these other conferences going to air on their own? Alternative TV deals like Netflix and Hulu and other online services? Maybe. But they can't be serious. That's exactly what the Pac-12 tried to do in the 11th hour to remain the Pac-12, and it blew up in their faces. And they didn't have a media deal, and everybody left. It's exactly what is going to happen. Again, I thought the article was interesting, but it was short-sighted on a couple of fronts. And by the way, Notre Dame would never go for any of that alternative stuff. You still need to have your games airing on big boy network TV to matter in this day and age. You still do. It's a fact. So in the end, calling the Big Ten and the SEC's bluff would expedite the inevitable move these teams would take to the Big Ten. They would go to the Big Ten and the SEC. The super conferences would grow. This is the model that this podcast has been saying is going to happen from day one. Just going to happen faster. But 20 Big Ten teams, 20 SEC teams, or 22 Big Ten teams and 22 SEC, that's it. That's all that will matter at this point. We'll take the best of the ACC and the best of the Big 12 and throw them in there. That's it. You're done. I wouldn't call their bluff right now. They have the leverage. They're going to get what they want out of this meeting tomorrow. So in the short term, I will tell you this. I will give you this prediction from this week regarding the future of the college football playoff. The Big Ten and the SEC, they'll force everybody to accept 4 each, 4 Big Ten, 4 SEC in the playoffs. But I think the compromise coming out of this will be, all right, instead of jumping from 12 teams to 14, they'll say, well, all right, if you're going to hog up all the spaces, let's make the field bigger. Let's make it fair for everybody else. We'll go to 16. 16 is going to come out of this. We were going there anyway, which I think is bad anyway. I was good with 4. I've often talked about that. So think about it. So we'll have a 16-team field. 8 of those spots will be Big Ten and SEC, and everybody else will grab all the other spots. That's what I think is going to happen out of this. And again, it seems like every answer to every problem is expand. It's idiotic. We're good with 4. You're just going to end up with more blowouts, more fringe teams. And I mean, even the idiots that are talking about, let's do the NCAA March Madness. Let's expand that field to 76. That's out there now. Stop it. The 76th team is not going to win the national championship. Don't waste my time. It's getting to be that way with college football as well. So anyway, recap. We're going to have a 16-team field, 8 spots going to the Big Ten and SEC schools, and nobody's going to be calling anybody's bluff this week in the big meeting going on in Dallas on Tuesday regarding the college football playoffs. We'd love your thoughts on it. Hit me up on that. Be sure to subscribe, by the way, and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And if you don't mind, please share, follow, and like. That helps us out too. Don't forget, you can check out our website, talkbig10.com. That's the number 10. All of our podcasts go there. If you want to go back and check out some you may have missed. And there's merchandise links there for your favorite school. If you're a Michigan fan, get a Michigan shirt. Buckeyes fan, get a Buckeyes pennant. Oregon Ducks, Penn State, everybody, right? It just links if you want to buy some merchandise and school spirits right there at Talk Big 10 as well. All right, I got some other things we still need to unload and talk about here. First of all, Nebraska has already canceled their spring game. So what do they cancel next? There's more. Stay tuned for that. Plus, did Indiana pressure Michigan over basketball coach Dusty May's contract? He got a new extension. He hadn't even been there a year yet. And the Big Ten's going to Vegas, baby. Plus, we'll have our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. All that coming up next right here on Locked On Big Ten. PrizePicks. Let me tell you about it. March is here. March and basketball. PrizePicks. It goes hand in hand. There's no better way to get in the action than with PrizePicks. The best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on any 2 player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. It's fast, easy, and it keeps every game exciting. You build lineups this week. For example, looking at Jason Tatum for more than 29 points and Anthony Davis, more than 12 rebounds. You put players together like that, boom. And you sit back and watch your winnings come in. PrizePicks even offers weekly promos like Taco Tuesday, where they get discounted player projections for even more value. Download the app today. Use the Locked On College code, Locked On College, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's the code Locked On College for $50 instantly after you play a $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Well, thank you for checking out Locked On Big Ten and making us your first listen each and every day. We always appreciate that, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, please. And also share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And check out our website, talkbig10.com. All right, in a moment, it seems that Michigan was pressured to extend Dusty May's contract because of Indiana's interest. We'll get to that in a second. But first, what's going on in Nebraska? I mean, they're canceling everything over there. First, Matt Rule, he canceled their very popular spring game. He did it because he didn't want other schools to scout them on TV, on the Big Ten network or whatever. And tampering was going on. Didn't want his players poached in the transfer portal. It happened half a dozen times last year. He didn't want it to happen again. Plus, he didn't want his players to get hurt. Lost a couple players last year due to season-ending injuries. Now, athletic director Troy Dannen dropped a home and home with the SEC's Tennessee Vols. He canceled the series. More canceling going on. They were supposed to do a home and home in 2026 and 2027. The 2026 game was supposed to be played in Lincoln. The 2027 game was supposed to be played in Knoxville. Instead, the Huskers will fill the home spots, home games against Bowling Green in 2026 and Miami of Ohio in 2027, along with a date against Northern Iowa in 2027. Why is all this going on? Well, Dannen says that the renovations at Memorial Stadium will impact home seating capacity in 2027. So obviously you would expect a huge crowd because, I mean, Nebraska sells out games anyway. Now you bring it in Vols fans who are very passionate, and they're not going to have the capacity to handle that game. And so now they have lower capacity because all the construction going on. He's got to set off the loss of the revenue from selling fewer tickets with the smaller crowds. So he's adding extra games. Boy, if you read the social boards, Husker fans are mad about this development. A lot of people are really looking forward to the Volunteers coming and doing the home and home there. And it doesn't seem like Tennessee athletic director Danny White is too pumped up about it either. He he tweeted out that Nebraska pulled the plug, not Tennessee. He wanted everybody to know it was not Tennessee's fault. He said, we're very disappointed that they did not want to play these games, especially so close to 2026. And now he's got to go find a replacement for Tennessee on that schedule. I mean, the Huskers, they're on the upward trend here. They're coming off their first bowl appearance in years. They won their first bowl game in a decade by beating Boston College. The Tennessee Vols, of course, made it as one of the 12 teams into the college football playoffs. Of course, they were destroyed by Ohio State. Otherwise, looking at the 2025 Huskers schedule, the 2025 schedule, the one coming up here, that was pretty interesting. You got the first 5 games at home and at Cincinnati. They got back-to-backs with Michigan and Michigan State to start Big Ten play. By the way, over the weekend, I read a piece about an interview with former Michigan running back Donovan Edwards, and he was asked about his favorite football venue other than the Big House, and he said it was Nebraska's Memorial Stadium, hands down, he said, especially at night. Place is crazy. Speaking of under the lights, going into the weekend, I was surprised, as were many, to learn that the Big Ten football media days in July, they're going to be in Las Vegas. By the way, do you know how hot it is in Las Vegas in July? It's going to be at the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. It's scheduled for July 22nd and 24th. Usually it's at Lucas Oil in Indianapolis every year. I find this a curious move. Everybody complains about the travel with the new coast-to-coast Big Ten, and most of the schools are in the Midwest or, within range there in the Midwest. And that goes for the numerous media outlets that cover all the Big Ten teams as well. So I was a little curious about this move. And, the league really has no interest in Las Vegas, but it's doing more and more things in Las Vegas. So it seems like this might just be a change of pace move. It might be a move where, hey, we're the Big Ten. We're successful. We have money. We've done everything there is to do in Indianapolis. We've gone to San Elmo Steakhouse as many times as we care to. Let's go to Vegas. It might be that. It makes me wonder if there'll be a future Big Ten football championship game held there at some point as a neutral field instead of Lucas Oil in Indianapolis, which it'll be in Indy until 2028. By the way, the 2028 men's basketball Big Ten tournament will be in Las Vegas, and the women will play there in 2027. So the Big Ten is moving forward with more and more activity there in Las Vegas. I don't think they'll expand there. I don't think they want Nevada or UNLV in the Big Ten, but nevertheless, spending more and more time there. All right, as promised, let's talk about Michigan's basketball situation here and Coach Dusty May. He's been in Ann Arbor less than a year, and he's already getting a raise and an extension. So what's going on here? It's called leverage. Leverage is a beautiful thing. Athletic Director Ward Manuel knew when he hired May, they hired a great basketball coach. And now the Wolverines are threatening to win the Big Ten here in his first season, Dusty May's first season. Quite an upgrade from Juwan Howard and his disappointing season last year. So it was a quick turnaround. But Manuel can read the tea leaves. He can check out social media. He can watch Locked On Big Ten podcasts. The word is out. Indiana was going to make a run at him. Indiana wanted him. And because Mike Woodson stepping down at the end of this year. And they didn't want to lose May to Indiana. May is an Indiana grad. He was a manager for Bobby Knight back in the day, as was current Indiana athletic director Scott Dolson. So they got that in common. It wasn't in the same era, the same time, but got the same job. You got a common background like that. Something to talk about. When Michigan beat Indiana on February 8th, May had to answer a lot of questions about his coaching future and whether he might be at Indiana someday, because it was starting to get at fever pitch. The rumors about, Indiana was interested. Were they going to ask it? Were they going to interview him? Was May going to go? He'd just been in Michigan for a year. May handled all the questions professionally. He said he loved Indiana. That's where he got his start, but he also loves Michigan because they gave him this big job, and he looks forward to continuing the job that he started in Ann Arbor. Of course, May garnered national attention during his 6 years as the head coach of Florida Atlantic. Not exactly a basketball hotbed, but he was successful there. That's where everybody noticed him. And he took over a school that had no money, no facilities, got them to a Final Four in 2023 as a 9 seed. Finished that season 34-3, 34 wins. The following year, they went back to the NCAA tournament. He won 25 games. By then, he was the hottest name in coaching, and Michigan grabbed him. His first year with the Wolverines, May is 20-6, 12-3 in the Big Ten, following Friday night's loss to Michigan State. Battle for first place at the time. So, done a great job there, and they want to keep him. And Ward Manuel was not having any of it, all the rumors out there, and he locked up with an extension in a race for the long term. Wolverines, by the way, are in action tonight. Monday night, it's the lone game on the Big Ten schedule, taking on Nebraska at Nebraska. They're looking to rebound from Friday's loss to Michigan State that we just mentioned, and despite that loss, the Wolverines are very much in the mix for a Big Ten title on the top seed of the Big Ten tournament. Still plenty to play for here. The Wolverines got their couple of 7-footers. If you haven't watched them, they got their own Twin Towers, and Danny Wolf and Vladislav Golden. Wolf is averaging 13 points and 10 rebounds per game. Golden is 16-6. Phenomenal. But the perimeter shooting has been struggling a little bit. Just a little bit. It's cooled off. And teams have been sagging back to defend the big guys into paint. Still, the Wolverines had a 6-game winning streak before they lost to the Spartans last Friday. Meanwhile, the Huskers on the other side, sitting on a 17-10 record, 7-9 in the Big Ten, and hoping to pad their NCAA tournament resume with a quad 1 win. That's the only game tonight in the Big Ten, men or women. So look forward to that. Michigan at Nebraska. Coming up, I got our top 10 observations from the weekend. We'll talk about that as we do a feature at the end of the podcast each and every day. I'll share that with you in just a second right here on the Locked On Big Ten. I'll tell you about FanDuel. When games tip off, NBA action's just getting started. Even if you miss tip-off, you can jump in later, live game betting. Do it with FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. You can place all those bets and stay in on the action, really get you dialed into everything that's going on. Your same-game parlays. They got an app that is so easy to use. When you win, by the way, you get paid instantly. It is awesome. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com and join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, if you're new here, we always do a feature at the end of this podcast. We always have fun with Mondays. We do my personal top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend, and I will share those with you here. Tuesday tweets tomorrow, by the way. Let me put this on the screen so you can take a look. If you're on audio only, no problem. Some of the observations I have. Let's start with the Washington women's basketball team in L.A. Ladine. 28 points in a win over Nebraska. Wanted to give her a shout out here. Also, the Ohio State women's team in their win over Purdue. Ohio State had 5 women in double figures in that game. Purdue just had 1 in that, and she scored 11. 98-46. Total domination. Tough weekend for Purdue, men and women. We'll get to that in a minute. I want to mention the USC women versus Illinois. This is a top 25 matchup. USC number 4, Illinois 25th in the country, and USC wins 76-66. Juju Watkins 22 points, 10 for 10 from the free throw stripe, and they won by 10. Practice those free throws, everybody. All right, Iowa's Peyton Sandfort. Let's talk about him. 27 points, 12 of 13 from the free throw stripe to beat Washington 85-79. Good win for Iowa there. Indiana's Mike Woodson. Want to give him a shout out. They beat Purdue soundly at Assembly Hall on Sunday afternoon on CBS, 73-58. Remarkable. You know what was also good? We all know Mike Woodson's on his way out to beat Purdue one last game against the Boilermakers. That was a good way for him to start his way out. And if you didn't know this, on Sunday, yesterday, that was the 40th anniversary of the famous Bob Knight chair throwing incident, which was also against Purdue 40 years ago yesterday. Mike Woodson, they have the chair. Mike Woodson got the chair, and he sat on it They put back on the bench the same chair that Bob Knight threw 40 years ago. He said, I thought that was pretty cool. That was worth a mention here in our top 10 observations from the weekend. And then I'll step it up like the Indiana defense did. They held Purdue to 21 points in the second half total. Purdue's like a top 10 offense in college basketball. Held them at 21. That was some great defense. 73-58, your final score. Michigan State, Jace Richardson. 21 points in that game against Michigan. That was a big game in the Big Ten on Friday. Huge, great job by Jace. We also have Oregon's Nate Biddle. Why do I mention him? Had 23 points in the win over number 11 Wisconsin. Oregon was ranked earlier this year. They're playing well. Then they hit a skid. This is a good quality win against a good Wisconsin team. Biddle with 23 points in this one. And that's not the only thing I want to mention from this game. My top 10 Big Ten observations over the weekend. Jackson Shellstad just put up a crazy three-pointer to force overtime in that win versus Wisconsin. If he doesn't hit that, they don't get to overtime. They don't win the game. And then finally, our top 10 Big Ten observation. Shout out to UCLA's Mick Cronin as they beat Ohio State. It was Cronin's 500th career win as a head basketball coach. So congratulations to him that made the top of our list, our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. Don't forget, tomorrow we got Tuesday tweets. So send them to me on Twitter. If they're good, I'll get them out there at Talk Big Ten. Looking forward to that as well. And not Wednesdays, we do power rankings. Thursdays are Big Ten classics. Fridays, we make our picks going into the weekend. Busy week. We're going to keep an eye on those meetings of all the conferences as they decide the future of the college football playoffs. Tuesday, tomorrow in Dallas. Any news breaks out of that, we'll be talking about that. Got our eye on football. We're getting closer to spring football. And, of course, March Madness and basketball right around the corner. Get it all right here. This is the only place, the only podcast you get Big Ten news, Big Ten breaking news, analysis, and opinion all in one place. And your comments as well. Many ways for you to interact with us. Don't forget Twitter. I just mentioned Talk Big Ten. Our website, talkbig10.com. That's the number 10. See the crawl on the bottom if you're on video. All of our podcasts go there. Plus, you can buy your favorite team's merchandise there as well. Be sure, no matter what you do, before you go, hit that subscribe button, please, and follow this pod. It's free. You can follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app. Get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. I always enjoy our visits. Tell your friends about us that we're out here each and every day. We'd love to have them jump on as well. For Locked On Big Ten, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks for checking us out. I'm Craig Sheeman.